All right, let's talk Texas government. We're going to dig into a question that seems simple on the surface, but the answer is anything but. So, who's really running the show in the Lone Star State? We tend to think of the person at the top, a president, a CEO, as the one calling all the shots. And in Texas, sure, the governor is the face of the state. But are they the undisputed boss? Well, that's where things get really interesting, because the way Texas is set up might just surprise you. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the big, universal problem of power itself. Then we'll look at Texas's unique solution, this thing called a plural executive. We'll rewind the clock to see where that idea came from, map out how your vote actually turns into law, and finally, we'll see what this whole decentralized system means for Texans today.
Okay, so first things first. Every single democracy has to wrestle with this fundamental puzzle. You've got to give the government enough muscle to get things done, build roads, run schools, keep people safe. But how do you do that without letting it get so strong that it starts stomping on the very freedoms it's supposed to protect? It's a classic balancing act.
And the go-to answer for both the US and Texas is this idea of separation of powers. It's pretty straightforward, really. You just split the government's job into three parts. You have the legislative branch, they're the ones who make the laws. The judicial branch interprets those laws. And the executive branch, they're the ones who enforce them. The whole point is to create a system of checks and balances, so no one part of the government can ever get total control. I love this analogy. It just makes so much sense. Think of the government like a referee in a football game. The ref's job isn't to play for one team or the other. Their job is to enforce the rule book, which in this case is the Constitution, to make sure the game is played fairly for everybody. That idea of limited government is literally the foundation for everything else. So if that's the standard American playbook, how does Texas take it to the next level? Well, while the federal government separates power between those three branches, Texas goes a step further. It takes the executive branch itself and splits its power up among a bunch of different people. And this is what we call the plural executive. And this chart just lays out the difference perfectly. See, at the federal level, you've got one person in charge, the president. They pick their cabinet, and those cabinet members all report back to the president. But in Texas, it's a totally different ballgame. The executive power is deliberately spread out. The governor is just one of several top officials. And here's the kicker. They're all independently elected. They don't answer to the governor. They answer directly to you, the voters. So who's on this team of rivals? Well, you've got the governor, of course, but then you have the lieutenant governor, who actually holds a ton of power because they run the state senate. You've got the attorney general, who's the state's top lawyer. The comptroller is the state's accountant, basically controlling the money. And it keeps going. The land commissioner, the agriculture commissioner, each one elected separately, each one with their own authority, given to them directly by the people. So the big takeaway here is that this setup is no accident. It is 100% by design. The people who wrote the Texas Constitution were dead set on making sure that no single person, not even the governor, could ever have too much control. They built a system where power is checked not just between the branches, but within the executive branch itself. But why? Why go to all that trouble? To really get why Texas is so afraid of centralized power, you have to understand the specific historical moment that gave birth to this whole system. It's a direct echo from a pretty painful chapter in the state's past. This quote right here just nails it. The Constitution that Texas uses today was written way back in 1876. And that was right after a tough period called Reconstruction. The mood at the time was, to put it mildly, extremely skeptical of government, especially a powerful top-down one. And this timeline shows you exactly how it happened. After the Civil War, this new Constitution in 1869 created a super powerful governor and a really centralized government. A lot of Texans felt that this government was just plain oppressive. So the moment they got the chance, in 1876, they threw it out and wrote a brand new one. And their main goal was simple: slash the government's power, especially the governor's, and hand it back to the people. The plural executive was their number one tool to get that job done. Okay, so that's the structure. We have this deliberately decentralized system, but how does anything actually get done? And maybe more importantly, how does your vote, your participation, actually lead to real change? This is a really great way to think about it. Just imagine you're back in school, and the class needs to decide on a new rule. Instead of everybody just shouting out ideas at once, you elect one student to speak for the whole class. That, in a nutshell, is our system. When you vote for a state rep or a senator or even the attorney general, you're picking someone to go make decisions for you. That's how our individual voices come together to form a representative government. And once those representatives get to the Capitol, there's a clear process for turning ideas into law. And listen, an idea can come from anywhere. Say a student group, after a local tragedy, campaigns for tougher laws on texting and driving. A legislator hears them, and they draft that idea into a formal bill. But that's just the start. That bill has to survive debates, amendments, and votes in committees, and then on the floor of both the House and the Senate. And only if it makes it through all of that does it finally land on the governor's desk, where it can be signed into law or vetoed. All right, let's bring this all home. We've got the history, we've got the structure, but what are the real-world consequences of this plural executive system for people living in Texas right now? Well, on the one hand, it works exactly as planned. It definitely limits the governor's power. It also means you, the voter, hold the attorney general or the land commissioner directly accountable. You get to pick specialists for specific jobs. But there's a flip side. It can make getting everyone on the same page really, really hard. Think about it. When the heads of your biggest state agencies don't report to the governor, trying to coordinate one big policy can turn into a nightmare. Imagine a hurricane is barreling toward the coast. The governor wants to manage evacuations, but the independently elected land commissioner controls the coastal lands, and the attorney general has their own take on emergency powers. Making it all work seamlessly becomes a huge challenge, because at the end of the day, they all answer to the voters, not to each other. And that leaves us with a big central question about the Texas model. Is this scattered system the best way to give power to the people, letting them pick their entire executive team piece by piece? Or does it create a government that's so fragmented and divided that it struggles to get anything done when it matters most? The answer, a lot like Texas itself, is complicated.